Early Church Discipleship, September 29th readings. Tertullian, De Prescriptione Hereticorum, chapters 9 to 12. I now lay aside the earlier ground of dispute and take up plainly what must be our practice. There is a definite truth proclaimed by Christ, and that single, definite truth is what Gentiles and Jews alike are bound to seek and then to keep. Let us agree, for argument's sake, that the command, "Seek, and ye shall find," is addressed to all men. Still, reason itself prescribes how those words are to be understood. No divine saying is an island of words floating without sense. Each saying has its tether to reason, and that tether shows us the proper limit to our inquiry. If Christ has taught one certain thing which must be believed, then seeking cannot be an endless, indeterminate wandering. You are to seek until you find that taught thing, and when you find it, you are to believe. Belief marks the end of seeking. To go on seeking after you have believed what was taught is to act absurdly. Either you never truly believed, or you have fallen away from your faith. There is no middle course that honors both the command to seek and the command to believe. Seek until you find. When you have found, hold fast. Nothing more is required of you than to keep what you have believed, provided you believe that nothing else is to be sought or added beyond what Christ has taught. Matter, time, and limit of seeking. To give clarity to this rule, I distinguish 3 points in the exhortation to seek: the matter, the time, and the limit. In the matter, you must know precisely what you are to seek. Christ did not send men out to chase every speculation and every new fancy. He gave a content, one gospel, one faith, one deposit of truth. In the time, you should seek while you have not yet found, not after you have found. In the limit, your seeking has a boundary set by the very act of finding and believing. The moment the fruit of your seeking appears in belief, the process is complete. If, because many counterfeit teachers arise and each offers a new truth, we should therefore continue seeking indefinitely, then seeking would become a perpetual pretext for unbelief. Where would it end? Shall we say, "Seek until you find Marcion's God," or "Seek until you discover Valentinus's mysteries"? Such an unbounded seeking would leave us always in motion and never at rest, always a seeker and never a believer. That cannot be the intention of Christ's admonition. He calls us to seek that which he taught. Once found, belief is the proper and necessary cessation of the search. Seek, and ye shall find, Matthew 7:7. For to every one that asketh it shall be given, and to him that knocketh it shall be opened, Matthew 7:8. Why continued searching becomes denial. There is moral danger in aimless inquiry. One may wander in error with impunity only so long as he deserts nothing. But if a man first receives that which he ought to have believed, and then turns again to seek some novelty, he thereby deserts his faith and proves himself a denier. Seeking beyond the boundary will inevitably imply either that he never truly possessed the truth, or that he has since lost it. The woman in the parable sought because she had lost a piece of silver. When she found it, she ceased her search. The neighbor knocked because he lacked bread. When the door opened and bread was given, his knocking stopped. So also the widow's incessant appeals end when the justice she sought is granted. Seeking, knocking, asking, each has its due limit. Beyond that limit, they become signs of fruitless obsession or of a heart unanchored. To be always seeking because one never finds is the mark of one who looks in the wrong places. To be always knocking where there is no door is to pound in vain upon an entrance that does not exist. To be always asking of one who does not hear is to expose oneself to unavailing complaint. True seeking rightly ends in finding and in the repose of faith, a seeking that remains within faith. This is not to say that all seeking is foolish, for we are to seek always. Yet where and how must that seeking be conducted? Not among enemies of the faith, not among those who have no share in the apostolic witness. We do not go to strangers for nourishment when we already have food in our own house. We do not expect bread from one who is an enemy of our master. The man who asks help of a hostile king is either mad or a deserter. Likewise, we must not look for instruction from those whose whole system is contrary to the apostolic rule. No man rents light from where darkness reigns. Our seeking must be within our own, among those who hold the apostolic teaching, within the scriptures and the rule handed down by the apostles, and in the company of those who are our own in confession and life. This is the seeking that is never out of place, a searching that remains inside the bounds of faith, testing nothing against fancy, but testing all things by the apostolic standard. Such inquiry, rightly bounded, cannot impair faith. Rather, it confirms and deepens the possession of the truth we have already received. Therefore, I admonish the reader, seek what Christ taught, seek it until you find, and when you have found, be content. Do not be seduced into the perverse curiosity of heretics, who would make you a perpetual seeker so that you never rest in the gospel. Let your seeking be exercised where faith directs, under the rule of the apostles and the guidance of the scriptures, and let that seeking lead you to belief and to the peace that follows true possession. Hold fast what has been delivered, cease the search when you have received, and beware the endless dialect of those who would have you seek without end. Augustine of Hippo, The Confessions, Book 11, Chapter 5. He recognizes the Trinity in the first 2 verses of Genesis. The Trinity revealed in creation. Behold now, the Trinity is shown to me as an enigma in which thou, O my God, art present. I perceive the Father in the phrase, in the beginning. For in that beginning, thy wisdom, born of thyself and equal and co-eternal with thee, I see the Word by whom heaven and earth were made. When I contemplate the heaven of heavens, the invisible and formless earth, and the dark and troubled deep, I discern them as reflective of a wandering deformity in spiritual life. Yet even that life received its being from thee, and by thy enlightening was drawn toward beauty and new form. That heaven which was afterward set between the waters now points me back to the one who made all things by the wisdom that is thy Son. The Spirit born over the waters, under the name God, I hold the Father, the maker of these things. Under the name Beginning, I recognize the Son in whom they were made. And believing that my God is a Trinity, I read further in thy holy words, and behold thy Spirit born over the waters. There in that moving of thy Spirit, I see the third person manifest, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, one creator of all creation. In that simple sight my faith rests. The 3 persons stand present at the origin of life and light, and the fabric of the world itself becomes a testimony to the triune God who, by his Spirit, converts the formless into the beauteous, and by his word calls the life that was into life perfected. Thomas Aquinas, Summa Theologica, Part 1-2. Question 13. Combined articles of choice, which is an act of the will with regard to the means. Question. What is the nature of choice, and how does it differ from the willing of the end? Objection 1. It seems that choice is an act of the intellect, since we choose by comparing and judging among means, but judging belongs to the cognitive power. 2. Further, choice appears to belong to all animals, for even beasts select food and paths. Therefore, it does not belong to rational creatures alone. Further, the end moves more than the means. Therefore, choice is simply the will tending to the end, and there is no distinct act about means. Responsio, I say that choice, electio, is properly an act of the will regarding the means to an end. For the intellect, through counsel and judgment, proposes and discerns what may lead to the end, but the will, moved by the end, adheres to one means rather than another. Hence, while deliberation and judgment belong to the intellect, the very acceptance of one proposed means belongs to the will, and this acceptance is called choice. Choice belongs to rational creatures, since to choose is to take a means under the formal aspect of as ordered to an end. This requires the universal light of reason. Beasts indeed pursue something useful, but they do not apprehend it as means to end through deliberation. Therefore, they do not choose properly, but are moved by natural or sensitive appetite. Moreover, to will the end and to choose the means are distinct acts. The end is willed simpliciter and first. The means are chosen for the sake of the end after counsel. Thus the end specifies the direction of the will, but choice determines the path taken toward it. Quic summa choice is the will's act embracing one among proposed means for the sake of an end, after counsel and judgment, and it belongs properly to rational creatures. Caitlin at the crossroads. Caitlin faced 2 offers, one safe and near family, one stretching her gifts. She laid out the routes, costs, hours, people, growth. That was counsel and judgment. Then her desire for a life of service clarified the aim. Her will leaned toward the path that best served that end, and she embraced it. The thinking did not act by itself, and the feeling did not run alone. The end drew, the intellect proposed, and the will chose. When she clicked accept, the restlessness ceased. Counsel had done its work, and choice, quiet, firm, set her in motion.